Hello everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Minecraft Disney Q&A. It's the series in which you give me questions relating to anything Disney, and I give you answers, at least to the best of my abilities. We're here on the MC Magic server, the recreation of Walt Disney World, and instead of going through the parks right off the bat like I normally do, I'm going to go through the parkours, because this might not be known by everyone, but they have a few parkour courses. This one's, in the Tree of Life. And obviously Real Disney World doesn't have one, but I figured I'd jump around through them while answering questions. Now, we have a ton of questions this week. They're actually spilling over into my second monitor, so I'm going to just jump right in. Some of these will be long, some of these will be short. Yeah, let's just hop right in. So, first off, we've got, and I'm answering these in no particular order, by the way, so there might be themes, there might not. First off, we have Lindsay Tobias. Oh, nice. One of my Arrested Development fans here. Says, Rob, if Animal Kingdom is supposed to compete with SeaWorld parks, why does it not house dolphins, whales, shamus, etc.? Shamu is a whale. And why? I would say the argument there is that the Animal Kingdom isn't there to compete with SeaWorld. More than it would be like Busch Gardens. It's more of a zoo, even though, Animal Kingdom, not a zoo. That's what it's more trying to compete with. I think if you wanted to have that competition with SeaWorld, you would look to the Living Seas Pavilion at Epcot. That's where you have your, sea life. Now, that said, I know there was a pretty scathing documentary that came out recently about SeaWorld, and SeaWorld's hurting pretty bad for it. So I'd say at this point, Disney probably doesn't want anything to do with being reminded of SeaWorld. I think they want to stay away from that image as much as possible. But that's what I would say. I would say Animal Kingdom doesn't have water life because that's just not what they're aiming for. Next up, we have Kevin Clinky, who asks, hey Rob, what is the Epcot sphere, aka Spaceship Earth, made out of? Like, what material do they use to make the sphere? So, I'm going to assume, any sort of structure of that size and complexity is going to be made up of a lot of things, but I assume you mean like the outside, that shiny sort of dulled metal, like that silver material. So I did some digging, and what that is made of is, I have it pulled up here, a Leucobond, which is essentially an aluminum composite panel, which is just basically aluminum wrapped around some core that's not aluminum. So I guess essentially aluminum's the main answer there. One interesting fact about that is, if you've noticed, they have sort of little black lines in between all the triangles, and those are actually 1-inch gaps that are designed on purpose so that rainwater, when it rains in Florida, which it kind of does very often, by the way, I'm normally better at this parkour, it collects through these gaps rather than spilling off the side. So if you didn't have those gaps, whenever it rained, being underneath Spaceship Earth would just be like a waterfall, but instead it collects it all, and then it feeds it through a drainage system into what is it? Wow, I'm drawing a blank. Not the Seven Seas Lagoon, the World Showcase Lagoon. So that's a pretty cool design there. That's like, the Imagineers always thinking ahead. Thanks for that question. Next, we have the Slick Minecrafter, who asks, hey Rob, I think it would be cool to have a small section of the Magic Kingdom to pay tribute to the 1964 World's Fair. They already have It's a Small World, but do you think this would be cool? Great question, Minecrafter. I think it would be great. I don't know if the Magic Kingdom's the place for it. Of course, what he's talking about is the New York's World Fair in 1964 was where Walt Disney actually tested in practice a lot of ride design ideas. That's where you saw the debut of It's a Small World, and I believe what would become World of Motion, sort of like a pavilion that sort of had a lot to do with transportation. I was drawing a blank there. Sorry. As well as Abe Lincoln as the animatronic. That was sort of like the animatronic debut of human form animatronics. And it was really a genius business decision on Walt's part, because these companies were paying for these attractions, and part of the agreement was that he got to keep it after the World's Fair, because why would a company need a ride? And so he kept it, and then boom, he got rides for free. That's smart. I'd love to see an extension to the Walt One Man's Dream walkthrough museum in Hollywood Studios. I think to have that, a section that pays tribute to the World's Fair and what he did with the World's Fair there, would be more fitting than to have something in the Magic Kingdom, just because people who are at One Man's Dream at that point are admittedly already interested in the history of Walt. So I think that's where would be a good place to put it. Okay, now we're at the second parkour in Expedition Everest, and we're going to move on to our fourth question. The Disney Lover 71 asks, question for your next Q&A, which part of the park, as in a land, Adventureland, Sunset Boulevard, would you most like to see a refurbishment on? Ooh, that's a good one. Which part of what park would I like to see a refurbishment on? I think Future World. Future World, yeah. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? Future World totally needs a refurbishment. It's turning into Tomorrowland in the sense that it seems more like a tribute to old technology than new technology. So I would love to see them upgrade all those pavilions. And I have a series called Revisiting Epcot where I pick out a pavilion each time and I talk about what I would do to refurb that, how I think they could, do better. So, if you're listening, Imagineers, I'm cheap. You can hire me cheap. Good question, though. Next, we have Sean Blue Revamped, who asks, what company do you think will Disney buy next? They have Marvel and Lucasfilm. What else is there? Well, there's certainly a lot out there. Assuming your question means in terms of content creators, because, of course, they could buy companies, they could buy a car company if they wanted to make Disney cars. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, but, I think you're assuming content creators. If they were going to buy someone big, they've got comic books, they've got science fiction. Man, that's really tough. They have Pixar. I don't know. That's such a... I was in the camp who would have believed that Disney, if you told me Disney was going to buy Lucas, I would have never believed it. So it's really hard for me to imagine what else they could possibly buy. And that isn't like going to create a monopoly at the same time, right? Because, they're not going to buy the rights to Star Trek from Paramount. They're not going to buy, DreamWorks. Not that I don't think Katzenberg would ever sell it. What could they buy? What could Disney buy? I think if they ever realized the amount of money that's in video games, they would probably go after a video game publisher. So, I don't know, like a Ubisoft, or maybe not like an EA or Activision. I can't imagine. They're just too large, too valuable. So maybe something like an Ubisoft or something even smaller than that, and then maybe they could take another shot at doing some serious video game development. That's what I think. Next question, we've got Jakey Jurin, who asks, hey Rob, Frozen-related topic. They're from a section of Norway, and they're currently a meetup in Norway Pavilion, and there's talk about re-theming the Norway ride, the Maelstrom, and making it Frozen-themed. So as a question, what are your thoughts on this? It's a double-edged sword for me. I loved Frozen, and so I would love to see something Frozen-related in Disney World, like in terms of an attraction. Absolutely. But I don't like the idea of it at the cost of the Maelstrom. And here's the thing, the Maelstrom's not even like that amazing of a ride that like it needs to be preserved. It's just I don't like this trend of every attraction at Disney having to tie into some movie property or animation. Like the Maelstrom's great and it has nothing to do with anything else Disney related, and I think that's part of what makes it great. I think some of our most memorable rides, the Haunted Mansion, Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, like these are all properties, Pirates of the Caribbean, that were formed based on nothing. They were just original ideas that were not tie-ins with anything. I mean, look at the Pirates movies. Those wouldn't exist if Pirates didn't exist. So I don't like this idea that like everything new has to tie into some movie or animation or show or something. Like it just makes some more original attractions, I think. And so I would like to see something Frozen. I would not like to see Maelstrom become something Frozen. Next up, we have Mr. Static Blitz, who asks, do you think MC Magic should recreate Fort Wilderness Campground and River Country, namely River Country, since it has become an abandoned part of Disney? Do I think they should? Sure. If their goal is to recreate, okay, we're going to a theme park. I can't. We'll go to the Magic Kingdom. If they're if their goal is to recreate Disney World, that's part of it, even though they're abandoned. And, I mean, they built the Wonders of Life Pavilion, despite the fact that you can't really go into it. So I think they should build them. It'll probably be later on the list since there's not a whole lot to do and it's not as relevant. As for the campgrounds, sure, why not? I stayed at the campgrounds my last trip, so I love them, and they were a lot of fun, so I'd love to see them made. I tried to make the cabin once, which is tough because it's a tiny cabin and you do it 1-to-1 scale. It's really cramped. So if they can pull it off, and trust me, they have the talent to, then that'd be awesome. Next up, we have Brian Strauhan, who asks, "Hey Rob, major fan of your channel and all the videos you post. Thanks. My question for you is, I was watching the Pumpkin Army and you mentioned that you were possibly going to Disney for your dad's birthday and that you would maybe take videos while you were there. So I was wondering, did you end up going and did you post any videos?" I did not end up going, and I did not end up making any videos because I didn't end up going. Part of the reason for that, just to keep it short, was I was sort of moving and I was starting a new job, and you know, everybody's life was sort of in a state of flux, and so it didn't really make for a good time for a vacation. That said, I was actually just pricing out some vacations for this fall, like the end of this summer, so I really want to go, and I might have some people to go with. And then if I do go, I will definitely take videos. Now, alternatively, I might end up not going, and then I'll go to California for vacation. And if that happens, then I'm definitely going to spend at least a day, if not more, at Disneyland. And likewise, I would do some videos there. So keep an eye out. It won't be anytime soon, but, you know, eventually. Next question comes from I'm Okay. Trust Me. That's an interesting name. For the next Disney World questions, I would like to ask 2 questions. One, and this may have been asked before, is how would you incorporate Oswald into the Disney parks? And 2, if they add a new park to Disney World, what would you theme it? I wouldn't add a new park. I think there's plenty to do with the 4 that exist, and I think with 4, if they were like to their greatest fulfillment, they met, you know, they were really living up to their names, they would be more than enough content there for a full vacation. So I don't think there's a need for a 5th park. As for Oswald, I think that's a very delicate line because he does have a very important history in Disney history, but at the same time, you don't want him to overshadow Mickey, who is, you know, sort of the main mouse, you know, although Oswald's a rabbit, so I guess he can't be a mouse anyway. So, I mean, work him in, you know, I think the way they're working him in now, like they've got Oswald ears and, you know, there's people know about Oswald, but he doesn't have the same sort of pull that Mickey Mouse has, and I think that's the way it should stay. So I think they're doing a good job of it. Dylan Lydell asks, do you think they will make a water park in Disneyland? Also, if they do, will Disneyland's name be changed because of its size? Thanks. So to answer your second question first, no, I don't think they'll ever change the name of Disneyland. It's too historic, too memorable. You're throwing away a brand that people around the world are aware of, so I don't think they will ever change that. Do I think they'll build a water park in Disneyland? It's not impossible, but it's very improbable. The big problem between Disneyland and Disney World that you see is that there's not a lot of land in Disneyland. It's all been bought up, and so it's going to be super expensive to buy and develop for. And so you're not going to see as much development as you'd see in Disney World, where, you know, much of the land that Disney bought when he was planning this is still unused. They have plenty of land to use and develop. So I think you'd see more there than you would here, you'd see more in Disney World than you would in Disneyland. Also, I think Disney World's just becoming more, I think, of the vacation destination, and I think when you think about water parks, that's what they're sort of part of, at least in the context of Disney. I think Disneyland, as fun as it is and as much history as there, I think it is approached differently in terms of what they try to get out of a guest, right? With a guest at Disney World, they want you to come there and stay there, spend time there, go to all these different parks, and just almost live there for this little vacation. Whereas Disneyland is something I think you add on to your agenda while you're in California, or you go there, you know, in the way you'd go to like a Six Flags if you lived in the area. It's just something that you have available to you. Let's eat some chicken so I could run again. There we go. So I don't think you'll see a water park anytime soon, although it's technically not impossible if they're willing to spend that money on land and development. Next up, we have Brandon Garvey, who asks, Has Disney given an official stance of preserving extinct attractions? Would they, for example, ever release a DVD that has a ride-through of Horizons, Body Wars, etc. for those who never got to see them or for people who missed them? Does Disney even have any recordings of these rides that they could use for such a project? Also, have they given an official opinion on fans doing that instead? They discourage people filming on rides, don't they? Have they ever tried to take down videos of extinct attractions off of YouTube, and if not, is there a danger of them doing so in the future? This is a fantastic question, one that I don't think there's any clear-cut answer on. To my knowledge and my research, I haven't seen Disney give any sort of official stance on preserving extinct attractions, which is a shame, but at the same time, it's sort of understandable. You have to look at it from their perspective. When they're closing down an attraction, they need to sell to the people who go to Disney World that this is a good thing because something better is coming along or that ride wasn't worth keeping open. So to sort of have a stance on preserving these attractions or to make a big deal out of, you know, preserving them for fans is to, in a way, admitting that maybe they shouldn't be getting rid of them to begin with. And that's a mixed message that I don't think Disney would want to send. Now, that's just my opinion. They've never said anything either way. Personally, I would love to see that. I remember many episodes back talking about my ideas of making sort of a preservation kit that fans could buy, like Horizons. Like you mentioned, give me a Blu-ray with an HD ride-through of Horizons, even though I guess you can't really do that anymore. Give me a book about the making of it with some beautiful concept art. You know, give me the soundtrack on MP3 or on a CD, you know, and then if you really want to like make it an expensive product, throw in like a small piece of the attraction, like a little tiny prop or a piece of like the ride, something that people could hold on and treasure. I think that'd be fantastic. I would buy that so much. And that's one way of them sort of profiting off of the closure of a ride that, you know, is admittedly not profitable for them anymore. Will they ever do it? I don't know. I hope so. I hope somebody at Disney hears that idea one day and rolls with it and then makes a time machine and goes back and does it for Horizons so I can buy them all up. In regards to your second part of the question, I don't think they have a problem with fans doing it. There are plenty of ride-throughs. I think the idea, though, is unless you have, like, unless you get some really clear-cut recordings of the music, legally they're not in a position where they could pull those videos down. You know, this was sort of a legal issue that popped up when Escape from Tomorrow, the independent film that was shot entirely in Disney World and Disneyland without Disney knowing, came out. The truth of the matter is, as lawyers have pointed out, Disney wouldn't really have a whole lot of argument to pull it down because they didn't use any Disney music. And while the rules prohibit filming on rides and they were technically breaking the rules, there are no rules against having footage of the rides. Because think about it, if you can pull down a ride-through video, then that's a slippery slope to them being able to pull down home movies. And that's something Disney I don't think would ever do. I think the only time you'll see them even entertain the idea is if I'm riding through Splash Mountain here and I get a really crisp recording of Zippity Doo Dah, and now the argument could be made, well, yeah, it's a ride through, but it's also, I'm in a way ripping Zippity Doo Dah, the song, and, you know, music rights are a whole other can of worms. But in general, I don't think they have a problem with it, and as long as the fans are willing to do it while Disney's not, I think that's a fantastic thing and an amazing thing. I don't think you see that with a lot of other theme parks. We still have like 3 questions left. There's so much to talk about this week. Next one comes from Whichever Comma Games. Rob, do you think that Disney World should have every castle of every princess? Magic Kingdom already has made Belle's Castle as the restaurant. So should they maybe make the place for Aladdin in a pavilion in Epcot? What do you think? I don't think so. And I think the reason for that is speciality comes from rarity. You know, I think if you put every castle there, it would make each castle a little bit special because it just becomes one of many castles. I think part of what makes, you know, Cinderella's castle or Sleeping Beauty's castle so great is because it's the castle. It's the one that's there, and, you know, there's nothing else like it. Sure, the other castles would be different, but there'd still be more castles. So, you know, I'm in the camp of keep them on the lower end. Next up, we have Chris Rock, who asks, do you think that Disney will ever be a partner with a major sports organization like FC Barcelona or even leagues such as the NFL? This is an interesting question. One, because I don't have the legal background to give that sort of answer, but my mind immediately went to the idea that no, they wouldn't, because they own ESPN, and that might be a conflict of interest for them. Like, let's say they ever got involved with the NFL or like a team on the NFL. I think having ESPN and then a team on the NFL creates a very dangerous conflict of interest where, oh, maybe they're starting to show those teams games and, you know, things like that. And it creates for a pretty unhealthy ecosystem. So I feel like as long as they have a media company like ESPN that covers sports, they should probably stay out of sports. I don't know if that plays a part into why they eventually sold the Mighty Ducks. And I think they were apparently like looking into buying the Angels at some point in California, but I don't know, or that fell through. But I'm sort of glad that they don't have those sports teams while also having that media. You know, I love Disney. I love the companies. I think the quality of what they put out is fantastic, but there is a danger of too much consolidation in a marketplace where, you know, you have to start questioning whether you can trust what you're seeing because they have invested interest in what they're showing. And then lastly this week, we have Kogo65, who says, do you think that Epcot should have a main resort as well as Hollywood Studios? The Magic Kingdom has the Contemporary Polynesian and Grand Floridian. Animal Kingdom has the Animal Kingdom Lodge. Good question. I would argue they kind of do. I mean, they're not main in that they're directly connected through like a monorail or named after it. But, you know, the Boardwalk, for instance, is largely considered an Epcot resort because it's within walking distance of Epcot, or the Swan and Dolphin, I know, are considered Epcot resorts. Hollywood Studios, I think the All-Stars are considered like Hollywood Studios. It's essentially they're sort of classified by what they're closest to. And so in that sense, I think they already do have them. Now, if you mean like a resort that is themed after the park, well, you can argue that Pop Century, I mean, is all about pop culture, and, you know, Hollywood Studios is about films, which is a big part of pop culture. So maybe, you know, that's already there. And as for Epcot, boy, that one might not have so much of one. But what would you do there? Like a futuristic hotel might be a little too cold and uninviting. And if you have like hotels based on these like exotic locations, that might be a little too similar to the Polynesian and things like that. So I don't know. Maybe I could see that happening. I like the variety that we already have. So I'm happy with what we've got. In any case, that has been a very long Disney Q&A. If you have a question you want me to answer it, the place to ask is right here. Some people have been posting in other videos, like my Minecraft Let's Plays, or, you know, on my other channel. And I would say don't post questions there because I'll see them, but I will most likely forget that they're there, because what I do is before I record every episode, I go to the last Q&A video and I look at the comments for questions. So posting here in the comments on this video is your best shot of getting a question looked at. And if I don't answer it on the show, I try to actually answer it in the comments themselves. So either way, I try to get to it. In any case, I hope you have a fantastic week. Whatever you're doing this week, make the most of it. I say this a lot, and I hope the repetition doesn't sort of wear down the message, but it really makes it so much better. It's what I try to live by every day. It just makes things so much more fun when you throw yourself into it as opposed to dragging your feet through it. So whether it's school or work, or more school or more work, make sure you make the most of it. And I will see you all here next time for the next Minecraft Disney Q&A. Bye, everybody.